I don't know if some of our families dead. I don't know. All my friends gone somewhere else.
259 million children are exposed to more frequent, longer, and more severe heat waves. Today, I am going to discuss the cruel part of the world where the global warming is extremely low, but the climate change impact is extreme high. I am going to discuss about Latin America and the Caribbean crisis, where children and adolescents carry the heaviest burden of climate hazards. Their developing bodies are more vulnerable to extreme events such as droughts, heat waves, or tropical storms, and these same events disrupt their schooling and their families' livelihoods. This has become a disaster for the generations. This is creating a crisis of the world where crisis is never ending. A climate crisis is never ending process for the children's future. We are in the serious emergency.
Developing states contribute less than 1% of global emissions, but bear the most destructive effects of climate change. On the front lines of this crisis, these nations face irreversible impacts, where years of progress can be wiped out by this menace they did not create. In regions like the Caribbean, a single weather event can devastate an entire nation.
The Caribbean has one of the highest relative exposures to tropical storms, where almost all children are exposed to these hazards. Several storms result in extensive infrastructural damage, disruption to essential services, displacement, and large-scale water contaminations. In 2025, Hurricane Melissa disrupted schooling for nearly 477,000 children, and across the countries, it's affected by the category is 5 storms. In addition to the most frequent climate hazards, the crisis is not only limited to the crisis of the unusual climate impacts. It is also creating a health hazards. This is also creating simultaneous health issues and the crisis on the countries and the islands in the Caribbean where the emissions of the greenhouse gases is extremely limited, where the natural impact is under control, but the thing is that the exposure of climate crisis is extremely high. As you all know, the heat wave crisis, the unusual flood, the crisis of the cyclonic storms, and also the changing weather pattern is creating a dangerous scenario day by day.
2024 was a harsh reminder of this vulnerability. This Category 5 storm tore through the Caribbean, leaving homes destroyed, power grids down, schools in ruins, and farms wiped out. This is the true face of loss and damage. Livelihoods, communities, futures shattered.
I am in the deep research regarding the crisis of the unusual cyclonic storm of the Iceland-based countries, as I am already involved in the Sundarban issue where the simultaneously same crisis is occur on a day by day in like a Caribbean issue. The Northern American countries and also the Caribbean island is facing the crisis and unusual disaster of the day by day issues. As the children are facing the crisis for their future, the unusual disaster of their disruptions of the educations and uncontrollable health crisis. The crisis belongs to malaria, the crisis belongs to influenza, and many more crises belong to water bodies, and also the crisis is unusual, the climate disaster. As the involvement of this climate action scenario, the involvement of children and the adolescents of the future-centering ideology is very important. As my opinion and the policy belongs to climate education promotions around the world, which is a crucial impact of the Caribbean areas, because they need to understand what is actually the climate change impact is, how to understand the weather pattern, what should be the actual timing of the crisis, the timing of the hurricanes, the impact of the hurricanes, and what should be the possible measures of the requirement of the adaptations and the mitigation policies. As you all know, the strategies to survival in this world from the climate crisis is very important, and the policies are bringing, and the many more developing countries is trying to make the input the policies in the government data. But the thing is that this is a time for impact of the high emissions and the climate education impact of the growing developing countries, which is under the crisis of the climate change impact, and also the island-based countries. They need the climate education, they need the climate actions, and the Caribbean should participate in high conferences on the climate actions. This COP31 Atlanta, Istanbul is very important to discuss about the island countries, the crisis of the food insecurity, the crisis of the disaster of the hurricanes, the crisis of the extreme flood scenario, and unusual the catastrophic crisis of the disruption of the regular lifestyles, and also the simultaneous crisis of the resources which we are facing in the due to crisis of the population parameter high, and also the unbalancing the crisis of the requirement. This is the time of the discussions that how we are losing the economical structure. This is the time to create a new economical parameter with the climate education pattern and the impact of the climate actions for the future.